Hello friends, welcome to my channel FinTech Logics. So today we will talk about another ratio that an investor can use while making his or her mutual fund decisions. The ratio is called as Sharpe ratio. Now I have covered about other ratios and my personal finance series about the different angles of mutual fund in my earlier videos. If you have not seen that, I'll try to provide some of the links here. Please have a look. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you like my content. So without wasting time, let's begin the topic of our discussion today about Sharpe ratio. Now, if we look at the basic definition of Sharpe ratio, this is basically the measure of risk that is taken with respect to the return that is made. So if I want to correlate the measure of each unit of return that a mutual fund makes with respect to each unit of risk that is taken, that is in short tells about Sharpe ratio. So this is nothing but a ratio that tells us that okay, if it is justified, take the amount of risk to make certain return or not. So this is, we are doing a correlating of your risk and return. That is why this is very critical to make any decision. Now let's look at a simple example to interpret how this works. So let us talk about two funds here. So one is your fund A and one is your fund B. Now fund A is giving us annual return of 14% and fund B is giving us an annual return of 16%, right? Now let's take that standard deviation of fund A is 28% and standard deviation of fund B is 40%. Now I've talked about standard deviation and interpretation in my previous video. If you have not seen that, please have a look. Now let's assume a third factor, that our risk-free return, so which is normally for a 91-day treasury bill return, is around 6%. Now if I want to calculate Sharpe ratio of fund A, this is the annual return 14% minus risk-free return divided by standard deviation, which is 28%. So that gives me 0.28. But the same thing for fund B is 0.25. Now we can say that your fund A is better than fund B in terms of risk return trade-off, because we have taken lesser risk to make that amount of return comparatively. So that is what decides. So if you would have looked at just the return, you would have gone by fund B probably, because that is giving a better return, 16% return. But as you are considering risk into the point of analysis, we see that fund A is a better fund than fund B. So if it is lesser risky, then the chances of volatility is less, the chances of deviation from expected return is also less, and probably will make a sustainable return from that in a long term. So that is what Sharpe ratio is very critical in telling us the risk return trade-off. Now, can this be negative? Yes, if the returns are less. So that means if your fund's return is less than your risk-free return, that means your T-bills return of 6%, this can result in negative value. For simplicity of analysis and easy remembering, let's remember that higher the Sharpe ratio, better the fund it is. Now if I give example of the left hand side diagram, where I have particularly pictured one mutual fund where your Sharpe ratio is 0.97 versus your category average is 1.63. So what does this mean? So this means that this particular mutual fund is taking lot more higher risk may your return be good, but lot more higher risk than other funds in the same category. So that is what creates a difference, that okay, you should not be investing in these funds if you are doing a comparative study. Now let's look at 2 points of caution. So first thing is that from the calculation it is pretty evident that the calculation of Sharpe ratio is dependent on standard deviation. So as we told that standard deviation also has some limitations. The same limitations also gets applicable for Sharpe ratio indirectly, because we are taking standard deviation into account. So that is why the use is limited. The second thing is that Sharpe ratio should be cautiously used for only the peer mutual funds to do a comparison. So that means preferably with the same sector, same kind of underlying portfolio, and probably same percentage. So ideally you should be looking at Sharpe ratio to compare these types of funds. Now we learnt about standard deviation, we learnt about your beta, and we learned about Sharpe ratio. Now all three should be used together to make a better decision of your mutual funds. I hope you would have liked my video. Thanks a lot for watching.